Hey guys, hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be reviewing the TRENDnet TK-240-DP, which is a 2-port dual monitor DisplayPort KVM switch. The purpose of a switch like this is to share one set of peripherals between two PCs. This includes your monitor, speakers, keyboard, mouse, etc. But this switch in particular supports switching two monitors at once, which is incredibly useful for someone who works from home but maybe also games, does a little video editing on the side, or other digital work on a personal PC that you might not necessarily want on your work computer. So I had my eye on this one for a while, and I think it wound up being a good purchase for me. I found this on Amazon around the time of recording. It's listed for just over $200, and I have an affiliate link in the description if you're interested in that. So anyway, let me get into some specs. The TRENDnet TK-240-DP supports up to DisplayPort 1.2 video connections. It can drive up to 3840 by 2160 resolutions at 60 Hz refresh rate, or up to 2560 by 1440 resolutions at 144 Hz refresh rate. And that's actually how I use it. I don't have a 4K monitor. I go for something a little bit lower res with higher refresh rate. But if you're willing to settle for 60 Hz, you can definitely do two 4K monitors at once on this switch. The box also has a USB 2.0 hub and 3.5mm speaker and microphone jacks. With all this being said, it comes with absolutely no cabling other than the power adapter needed to run the switch, which means if you're going to make this purchase, you're also going to be dropping, I don't know, $10 to $30 on cabling, depending on what you have already laying around. Let's take a look straight at the back of the switch. The first thing you'll notice is there's 3 sections, one in white labeled console, and PC2 and PC1 going from left to right. The console section is basically your shared section. This is your hub. So on the far left, you've got the USB hub. That's 2 USB Type A connections, and those are what's going to be shared or passed through to either PC2 or PC1, depending on which button you press on the front of the switch. They've got the DC power input, it's a 9-volt jack, and there's a display port, they say port A and port B, on the top right corner. And the bottom right, you'll see the green and red, that's the 3.5mm speaker and microphone jacks, respectively. Much to my surprise, they have a dedicated keyboard and mouse USB Type A feed-through. So you can look at this however you want. You can look at this as free real estate, extra ports, or you can be a little bit more pessimistic like me and see potential room for error here. The main complaint I've seen from people online is basically detection issues with the keyboard or mouse, and in particular, one that I've experienced myself is actually a DPI issue with the mouse feed-through port. So if you don't know what DPI is, it's a setting on your mouse that essentially allows the cursor to move across the screen faster or slower for the same movement of the mouse across the mouse pad. A lot of times this is a setting you can change in the software for your mouse, or even just a physical button on the mouse itself. Anyway, it seems like the dedicated mouse USB port has problems with high DPI, and I actually wound up moving my USB connection for the mouse from the dedicated port to one of the generic USB hub feed-through ports. Whether or not you specifically will experience this issue, I can't say, but I just wanted to include that here. And I should note that I do use the dedicated keyboard feed-through, and I haven't experienced any problems there. Over here we have the PC1 outputs. Again, it's just 2 DisplayPort video cables, A and B, your speaker and your microphone. The one thing that you might consider even a little bit out of the ordinary here is that the USB output to your individual PC is actually a Type B. So you just need to be kind of careful here when buying your cabling. I'm assuming that your peripherals would be connected to your PC normally with a USB Type A, especially because that's how you connected them to the console on the left. You're basically going to need to buy a cable that's USB Type B on one side and USB Type A on the other. Be careful when buying a USB Type B cable, as there's more than one version. Basically, if you buy the wrong version, it'll be too big to fit in this slot. So anyway, basically the way this works is you want to have one set of peripherals that winds up driving both of your computers. So you want one keyboard, one mouse, you have your one stereo system, your one microphone, and in this case, you have your 2 monitors and maybe some other random USB peripherals. The one downside to a setup like this is you sort of get cable creep, where you're going to wind up needing a lot more cables than you might originally think. Now, because we're sharing the peripherals between 2 setups through this common switch, we actually wind up tripling our cabling. Notice that there's 6 DisplayPort sockets on the back of this switch. It's because all the peripherals physically connect into this white section over here, the console, and then you need a duplicate set of cabling routed to each PC. So in total, to drive 2 monitors on a 2-port KVM switch, you're going to need a total of 6 DisplayPort cables. And this is what's going to eat up most of your cost. On the other hand, you'll need a total of 3 3.5mm audio cables, assuming you're just using speakers, but additionally another 3 if you also want to use the microphones. And you'll likely need to buy 2 of these USB Type B to Type A cables. Now you can save yourself a little bit of money here by understanding physically how your setup is going to be oriented. Like I know for example that my KVM switch is going to sit a lot closer to my monitors than my PCs actually do. So I bought shorter cables for the common console connection, and some slightly longer ones to route out to the PCs. Here I just wanted to show how things look at the back of my personal computer. I've got 2 silver cables, one being a USB Type A and one a 3.5mm audio jack that both run from the PC2 output of the KVM switch, and also running from that output, the 2 fat cables on the bottom side by side are my display ports. I also thought it might be cool to show what things look like behind my desk. I have my KVM switch underneath my monitors, kind of in the center of my setup, and I'm lucky that I have a corner desk so I can just kind of hide everything behind. But you can see there's a massive amount of cables building up, and there's really no way around this if you're using a 2-monitor, 2-port switch. Depending on your setup, it might seem really daunting at first, but if you just go through it slowly and methodically, you should be able to get yourself organized. Over here on the left is my work computer, so there's a power cable and some random headphones plugged in there by default. But the silver cable on the left is my USB Type A, and the silver cable on the right is the audio jack. Then the 2 identical fat cables side by side here are my display ports running from the KVM switch. And this should go without saying, but I still can have some peripheral plugged directly into this laptop. It doesn't have to go through the KVM switch. When you press the buttons, there's a fairly satisfying manual click and a decently loud beep sound. You can see that when I press these buttons, there's a green light that tells you whether or not the switch detects that PC. Now if that green light isn't illuminated, it means the PC is not detected, but there's also this red light, which even if the PC isn't detected will still be on. And it says hub next to it. I'm fairly certain that light will just be on if you've powered the switch. Okay, I'm gonna let this video run for a little bit so you guys can see a real-time switching demo. One thing I felt like I had to include is that because I disconnected my switch for the sake of filming this video, I had the opportunity to look at all my cables sitting here just unplugged, all innocent-like, and so I thought I'd give this picture just as a little bit more perspective on how much cabling you really need for a setup like this, and also so you understand how stressful it was to plug all these back in again. To close things out, I just wanted to give one last perspective of what my setup looks like with the cabling and KVM switch in between my monitors. So I sincerely hope this was helpful, you guys. This is a switch that, other than maybe a few tiny cons, I've really enjoyed using so far, and I think was a totally solid purchase. I definitely recommend this to anybody looking for basically switching their 2-monitor setup between 2 PCs, potentially high-performance video PCs. So if you thought this was helpful, please let me know. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see, and if there's any way I can improve these videos. Other than that, thanks for watching and have a great day.